Hey everyone, how are you doing? It's Patrick Griffin and I'm joined by my colleague Jordan Miller. I'm very happy and proud to introduce Don Thompson, the CEO and founder of the Zen Vaper.
Hey guys.
Hey, how you doing, Don? You were here on, it's Friday now, isn't it? On Wednesday. You closed the show on Wednesday. And your talk went down incredibly well. You had a lot of powerful points to make about what's happening in America right now. And it was a kind of, I thought it was a kind of a bittersweet talk, really, because there were some things to be optimistic about, and there were some things to be perhaps a little pessimistic about as well. But you certainly touched a nerve because we had lots of amazing questions. I think the actual Q&A session in the end went on for longer than your initial talk, such was the amount of interest. But what I wanted to do to start with was to take you back in time a little bit. Now, I remember about 6 years ago, just coming up to 6 years when the magazine started, that the very first market that we went to, the first place that we visited was the US. And we went there and we saw a vibrant, passionate community where everybody was just being allowed to produce the amazing juices that they had, and there were people from everywhere getting in on vaping and telling their stories about how it transformed their lives. It was a story of optimism. And then we fast forward to now, and it's like, what went wrong?
Oh boy, this is going to be a long meeting. So I started vaping in probably September of 2015 to support a friend who was trying to commit smoking. I started to attend shows before I started the company. I attended my first show in Detroit in 2016, and I encountered very much the same thing that you did, Patrick. A bunch of people just happy to not be smoking. I got to meet like people. I was DIYing at that point, making my own stuff, but not yet commercializing it and selling it. I met like Philip Rock, who is like one of the OG master flavorists. You know, he makes just these incredibly layered flavors that are wonderful. He doesn't use sweeteners. Well, now he's kind of off in a different place, but man, it was just an honor. It was an honor to meet some of the YouTube reviewers, Grim Green, Mike Vapes, you know, that whole crew. It was, and everybody was open and friendly. And then we got the deeming regs 8 days after I started my company in 8/8/2016. And then the FDA stepped in and they made us register our company, our flavors, my recipes. The only thing that allows me to be a company and to be unique in the market, I had to put in a place where I can't control. I was like, ugh, that caused some consternation. And then fast forward that up until 2019, when EVALI hit and kids started dying and they're vilifying vaping for it, when it was in fact just the kids were buying black market THC products, and they had been, you know, those products have been thickened with the wrong stuff, and it was getting into their lungs, giving them lipoid pneumonia and killing them. But yet, for 6 months, the propaganda machine just got rolling and rolling and rolling, and they said, "Oh man, look at this vaping thing; it's killing people." Well, the truth is, in 10 years of vaping, we've had vaping for 10 years, no, actually 11 years now. Vaping has not killed one person, not one. In the time that I've just spoken, 20 people have died from smoker-related causes here in the United States. 480,000 a year, 1,300 and some a day, 55 every hour. That's almost one every minute. Okay, so how many minutes have we been doing this? Okay, 5 people have died, but yet not one has died from smoking. So we had EVALI, then we had, goodness gracious, then we had the PMTA process, then now we have the PACT Act, which is what we're going to talk about today. And it just keeps, they just keep trying to squeeze us out, and they try to take our joy. But luckily, we're a resilient bunch of humans.
Oh, absolutely. And I think from Wednesday's talk, one of the things that sort of stuck out for me was just you just gave 3 figures, and they really put things in sort of stark contrast of what's happening. I think initially you said that there were like 13,000 sort of 500 e-liquid companies, all in the USA, all working well and serving their local communities. And then the PMTA came along, and that went down to about sort of 6,000. And now with the PACT Act, down to 1,500 or 1,500, as you say in America.
or even less. We don't know. These are estimates. I mean, I have nothing I can give you a link on. This is basically just talking amongst the community and figuring out who's not here, who's still here. You know, oh, did so-and-so submit a PMTA? They might still be here, but they're about to be in like a really tenuous situation, because I just got an email from the FDA yesterday saying that, okay, my product, I've submitted, my PMTA has been accepted. They came back and they said, hey, are all these products currently on the market? Yup. They're making a list of people like me that have submitted and been accepted, and we're allowed to stay legally on the market until September of this year. And then what they're doing is they're choosing not to enforce against us for another year, to give us a time to gather up the science necessary to gain approval for our PMTA. So if there's companies that didn't submit, like I don't want to name names, I don't, because that will get me in legal issues, but there's some big names that you'll see at shows that have not submitted. They're brazenly not submitted. Well, they're about to get like in lockstep with like the ATF, the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearm people here in the United States. These guys don't play. If they catch you doing something you should not be doing, the first fine is $10,000 and 90 days in jail. So here we go from all these mom and pop companies little like me that just started out, we're growing. And then PMTA squeezes a little bit. The PACT Act squeezes a little bit more. And I mean, man, now, you know, when the PACT Act first came out, when we first realized what it was going to do, I had a couple of people, like friends of mine, friends in the community, people that I had just jawed with, on FaceTime late at night because we're both up and we don't have nothing to do. Or I'm in my lab making juice and they hit me up on the phone and I can actually, having a phone call while I'm homogenizing my juice. Those people are not out of business. This one guy calls me up. He's like, Don, I got to fold. I got to go figure out something else to do. In the meantime, I don't know how I'm going to make my house payment. I don't know how I'm going to buy food for my family. I'm anxious, and I wished at that moment I could have been like, hey guy, here's 10K, here's something to get you by, like we can figure something out. But I don't have that money. I felt helpless. And that's happening all across the United States. People are, decent people that have been in vaping for a long time, that are in it to help people quit smoking. They're just not in it to make $1 million. They're going out of business. They're closing their doors. They're like, oh, it's time to do something else. This is too hard. And what's happening is people are going back to smoking because of it. And well, that's a whole other topic for maybe another webinar, because it all comes down to money. The states get money from the big tobacco companies, depending upon how many cigarettes they sell every year, hundreds of millions of dollars. Lately, because of vaping, they're not getting as much money as they used to. And that is the impetus for these flavor bans, for these anti-vaping groups saying, oh, we don't want to have another generation of kids addicted. Well, I'm sorry, that premise is false. If you go back to the youth and tobacco study that was done last year, and you look at the whole study, like not just little pieces that you take out of context, you look at the whole study, both smoking and vaping have been on decline. Smoking has been on decline since 2013. Vaping had a little spike, it did, in 2017, and it's been on a steady decline since then to 2021. I'm really looking forward to what those figures look like when they redo the survey again this year. But that's not the case. But they're saying that in the name of that, they're getting this big propaganda campaign going, and they're falsely vilifying a life-saving technology, and that makes me sad.
That's the point. It is life-saving. And I know, Jordan, you had a question about the human impact of all this as well, all these regulations.
Well, I think,
yeah, guys, fire away.
See, I think the thing for me is what we can observe is that they're no longer just trying to straight up ban vaping or to cut off the industry. What they're doing instead is suffocating it with these potentially lethal policies like the PACT Act. But what stands out for me the most is not like the political jargon or all policies. It's the human stories and those incredibly sort of strong stories, like the ones that you were sharing when you spoke on Wednesday. Those for me are the most crucial part of this entire story. When you take away all the politics and all the agendas and the ideologies, it's how it's affecting individuals' lives.
See, here's the thing, Jordan. Thank you. That's a very thoughtful question. When I got into this in 2015, I had no idea how big of a community the vaping community was,
Yeah.
how embracing. I mean, you've got, you go to shows and you've got these big biker dudes with like long braided beards, they're tatted up, walking alongside of hipsters, walking alongside of, men of different color. It's a cross-cultural, diverse group of people that have one commonality. They're just trying to not smoke that day. And there you have this incredible sense of belonging to something bigger. And that's what's kept us resilient. I mean, the FDA has made us jump through all these hoops, and I just got it in my mind. I'm going to be legit. I'm going to be legit. Let's see all the things we can overcome. I think I've done this sometimes on sheer sickness. So, what are you going to do? But yet, what the FDA has done, what these government regulations have done with the PACT Act, is what they've tried to do is they've tried to suffocate the community and prevent us from getting together. The pandemic, man, did not help that issue at all. The show was in March of last year, and that show is actually coming back in June of this year up in Connecticut, the National Vaping event. And I'm sure you guys have probably attended. It's one of the biggest events of the year in the United States. We're all looking forward to getting back in person, to getting back and still staying socially distanced, still, kind of, being okay. But I'll tell you what, if I come up with somebody and they're vaxxed and I'm vaxxed, I'm hugging them because it's been that long.
Yeah.
That's what's happened is that between the pandemic and the government, it's been like just slowly making everybody battle weary. Like we want to stay off the stinkies, but man, it's just becoming increasingly more difficult. And now the pandemic has kind of fractured the community, not like into opposing forces and whatnot, but just it's kept us all home. And meeting virtually is just it's good. I love this Voxpo event. I enjoy it. But it's not the same as meeting in person. It's not the same as walking up, brother, how you doing? And having that face-to-face interaction, catching up with people, going to dinner with I go to these shows. I don't go to dinner with important clients or reviewers. I'll grab a customer who's been supporting me for a couple of years. Hey man, come on, let me buy you dinner. Those are the people I want to interact with. Those are the people that have basically paid my bills for X number of years. Of course, there's all these potential networking with big clients and wholesale sales and all that. That's going to happen regardless. But the idea is that interaction is what everyone misses, and we're all looking forward to both later this year and as we get into 2022 and the world gets more vaccinated and they allow more larger, more in-person events. We are really looking forward to that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it is, again, it comes down to it. This is the human element of things that we were talking about. Here at Vape Live on the I can't even say the Voxpo platform, we've got a lot of people who we've got people who are smokers who haven't started their vaping journey yet, or maybe very new to vaping. And I think a question that someone new to the industry would be, clearly we have something which has an amazing potential to save lives, is currently saving lives, is getting smokers to stop, something that a lot of smokers want to do all their lives and could never find a way to do so until now. So why are so many governments anti-vaping? What's going on?
Oh man.
I know that's a really big question.
You want to really open up that can of worms? I'll try to be brief. Okay, here's the situation in the United States. I can't speak for around the world because I haven't been all those places yet. In the States, it's all about money. It's political. I think everyone who has seen both sides of the coin, like they hear the propaganda from the anti-vaping groups, but then they also see Don in a suit walking into their office, as I do in my state's capital in Dover, Delaware, and they get the education of the benefits of vaping. For those people that see both sides of the coin, they see this as a very viable way for people to stop smoking. Two things. I'm gonna quote something, and I can give you a link on this if anyone asks. Vaping in the last 7 years, so since 2014, has helped more people to quit smoking and stay non-smokers for a period of time than all other cessation modalities combined in their entire history. Let that sink in. We've had the patch for 30 years. We've had gum for almost 30 years. We've had some of the drugs, Chantrix and whatnot, for 20 years. you combine all of the people that they've helped to quit smoking, and they have, okay, and then combine that all, and vaping still has more in just 7 years. It is the most successful smoking cessation modality in history since we've been smoking, and since we've been trying to smoke, because the Royal College of Physicians figured out in the 60s that it basically gives you cancer and kills you. I'm going to answer one little question on the Q&A thing.
Okay.
They just diagnosed me with carpal tunnel, and this is an anti-carpal tunnel cuff. I really don't like it, but it's the only way I can use my mouse when I'm at work. So I've got to wear this like probably 22 hours a day, probably for the next 3 or 4 months until the tendon, it's in this part of your hand. And I've basically angered it to the point where it makes my whole hand go numb. I can touch my mouse for about a minute and all 4 fingers go numb. And now with this cuff on, they don't do that. It is a pain to write. It's a pain to do anything that involves water. It's painful to use my mouse. I'm like, "Ugh." But you got to do it to heal. So anonymous attendee, there's your answer. It's like,
your answer.
Yeah. I'm sorry, guys. I don't mean to like take away from the next question.
No, that's absolutely fine.
It's cool. If I could jump in, to be fair, I mean, one of the things for me, and obviously your point about sort of community is incredibly valid, and I think that's a huge part of what plays into the success of vaping. I think when it comes down to it, smokers come in, or at least before, you know, vape shops were closing, be it due to COVID or due to just overly stringent restrictions, but they'd come into the industry, pick up a vape. They could ask any vapor in the room what started them off and what they recommend. And you could guarantee that they basically give their entire vaping journey start to finish and explain how they did it and what can help that smoker quit as well. And I think by eliminating that, either via, obviously our UK shops were deemed non-essential during the pandemic, which was hugely sort of impactful on our industry. And obviously with the restrictions as well, taking that away from new smokers only sort of perpetuates that and gets them stuck on the idea and this misinformation that's in the media that vaping isn't quite as good as we say that it is. I think it's important for them to be able to communicate with people who are already in the industry.
Well, I mean, like, give you an idea. The other point I wanted to talk about is that one of my local customers they have a shop literally 300 yards from my house. I could walk there, and I often used to, but pre-pandemic, just to sit and chew the fat with everybody. There's like, oh, wow, you're the CEO and you're just hanging out with us? I'm like, yep. Because, you know, it's all about being part of something.
Yeah.
But they have another store about 20 minutes down the road from me. And from the top shelf, which is just about head height with me, to their ceiling, which is about 5 to 6 feet, for the entire length of the store are packs of cigarettes. And I walked in, I was like, hey, B, what's up with this? Why do you have all those cigarettes? And he said, those are people that gave us their last pack of cigarettes for their first setup and a free bottle of juice. And I mean, there are thousands of packs of cigarettes. So, you know, basically that's what we're here for. We're here to help people. And then they get help and they get a measure more healthy. And then they figure out that there's a community that wants to answer all of their questions, you know, and bring them in and help them to realize that we're all in this together. We're all in this to try to remain non-smokers. So yeah, man, it's all about that community.
And that, I think, from day one, from me joining the industry, that is what I got, the tremendous sort of passion, the sense of community, and the whole idea of we're going to help each other. We're actually going to help each other stay on this journey, and then we're going to help others do it as well. And I think that is very important. I think it's sometimes very difficult to keep up with all the different regulations and things. But in the US, is it the case that if you've got a vape store, you actually can't tell people the benefits of switching from cigarettes? That was part of the deeming regs. I'm gonna name 2 funny things here, like you guys probably do every day in the UK, and we're not permitted to do. Yeah. So 8/8/2016, when they said that, hold on, let me get one. I'm gonna cover the RDA, but when they said that, which is a battery, it's a mod, okay? They said that's a tobacco product. We're like, huh? Okay, e-liquid I can get, it's got nicotine in it, but a battery? They said that, hold on, let me get one that doesn't have a brand name on it. They said that that's a tobacco product. It's not a tobacco product, it's a battery. So, you know,
So, and when they did that, they said a couple of things. We are no longer permitted in a vape shop or publicly on a public forum, like at a vape show, we are not permitted to say the phrase vaping saves lives. Vaping is healthier and safer than smoking combustible cigarettes. I can't get up on a stage at a show and say that anymore. I can't do it online in an interview. Well, this is in Europe, so I can do anything I want. But and beyond that, they can no longer help people to set their setup up. So if a guy comes in and he buys like a tank and a mod, the shop employees, or if I was there, I'd be like, hey, let me give you a hand with that. The other guys are busy. And I'd set his coil up. I'd teach him how to use it, squirt a little fluid in there. Of course, it has to be my fluid. And say, here, man, go have fun. By the way, this is your first setup. Oh, come on, you got to take a picture. And I have like lots of pictures of me hugging up somebody, and I'm crushing their last pack of cigarettes, and they're very proudly holding up their first vape setup. So not quite like my friend's store does it, and I just throw the cigarettes away. But I mean, I have lots of pictures of happy, very recently, moments ago, had their last cigarette people who've now just started their journey into vaping, So, but you can't help people. I mean, or what it was, and we got around this for a hot minute. You can't be a vape shop employee and help. So for a while, I started to go down to my local shop 300 yards down the road, and I wore a placard, literally a placard over, like an old fashioned, I am not an employee of this vape shop. I can help you set your setup up. Like kind of like saying, hey, okay, FDA, there. And then they closed that loophole. They said no one can help anyone in a shop to set their setup up. They've got to go figure that out on their own. I was like,
okay. So again,
why you gotta be like that,
That's the question now. Again, taking it down to the human level. If you are a smoker and you want to vape, what is the point? What good are you doing, or what is the ill that you're trying to get rid of by having that law? What is the evil in the world that law is designed to quash and make good? Because there isn't one, is there? It's just
Patrick, it goes back to the money. It really does. It goes back to the money. It's politics. There is big money in people smoking combustible cigarettes. The government can control that. The state governments get money from the big tobacco companies from that. With vaping, they can't control it, or they've tried. They've taxed us, excise taxed us, did flavor bans. I mean, like, I'm not going to say who and where, but I've occasionally met someone that may have been from one of those states, outside of their state, and hand delivered a white bag that had a little fat happy Buddha on it and had some vaping products in it, because that's what helped them to remain a non-smoker that day. You do what you need to do. And what the government doesn't realize is how stubborn and resilient we are, that we will do our level best, even sometimes putting our businesses on the line to be able to help people that are in these states that they've just clamped down in the name of allowing maybe a lot of those people that are vaping to say, oh, it's too hard now. It's too hard to vape. Let me go back to smoking, and they bank on that because then they get more money. Okay. The congressman in New Jersey who wrote in the PACT Act verbiage to the omnibus bill last December, that's exactly what he wanted to do. He wanted to make it impossible. He thought that was going to kill vaping. He said, that's going to be the blow that kills the industry. Nope. Got to try harder than that, guys. What it does is it just made a whole bunch of entrepreneurs spring up and say, hey, I run a regional freight company. I can do this. All right, let me go buy like 15 Sprinter vans. I can, within my region, I can deliver not just LTL freight, pallets of freight, but I can deliver individual boxes, business to business. Done. He then hires somebody to make a deal within the states, because you have to apply to collect the excise tax, which is anywhere from $50 to $10,000. Minnesota, 10 grand. Alabama, 10 grand. So you guys got to get your stuff together. But anyway, so they make deals and they get legit, and they can now take vapor products that we sell. And as long as they ship so many packages per day with this freight company, they'll take it anywhere. Poof. Yeah, okay. We don't need DHL, FedEx, UPS, and USPS. We're going to do it ourselves. We're going to become like Amazon is doing. Amazon has had their own delivery system for about 1.5 years now, and I can order something in the morning and I can get it delivered by 4 o'clock that afternoon because they're so efficient, because they said we don't need DHL, FedEx, UPS, and USPS. In fact, they actually rent quite a few USPS delivery vehicles on Sunday just to do Sunday deliveries, because they know that the mail doesn't deliver to homes on Sundays and on holidays. So,
Yeah.
it's possible. So, and thereby people continue to get their stuff, irregardless, circumventing, all these latest laws.
Yeah,
But
well,
sadly,
we actually, we said that in the office ourselves when we were discussing the PACT Act a while back. We said, well, all that's going to happen is someone's going to jump in and fill the void. I mean, that's the way it is. But
the
earlier
entire
on,
cottage industry has just sprang up from nothing.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
it just makes me smile.
Yeah, and that's what's always going to happen. One of the things you touched on, which I agree with entirely, is the whole issue of control. Governments around the world, they don't like the thought that there's something that they're not in control of. And the vaping industry is something that sort of grew up naturally, organically, and it grew on, first of all, on word of mouth, on something new and exciting that could help smokers. And it was like so liberating and different to cigarettes in that it was actually really enjoyable in itself. And it appealed to a huge number of diverse people, a lot of people who wanted to start with the same thing. And then you have people realize, well, I can make a hobby out of this. I can make a YouTube channel out of this. I can make a career out of this. And then it just mushroomed. And then governments around the world thought, we're not in control of this. We have to be in control of it. And
Yeah.
that, I think, that is one of the things that, that really can lead to either, in the UK, where I am very lucky to be as far as vaping is concerned, sensible, proportionate control and regulation that helps make things safe, which we all want to do. And then you have other countries like the US, which is just like, whoa, your control basically means putting thousands of people out of work and condemning people to die early because they're addicted to something that they can't get off now. That's crazy.
I totally agree. I almost moved to your country when some of these regulations started coming out. I was like, all right, I'm out. I'm done. I can do whatever I can do from anywhere in the world, and that's essentially what I'm going to be doing in the course of the next year. If the U.S. business goes sideways, man, I'm going to be sad because there's millions of people I can't potentially help, thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of smokers that now the government has said, poof, you can't do that. But there are so many thriving communities: Germany, the UK, Italy, Greece, Croatia, Romania, and then emerging markets. New Zealand, which is right next to Australia, that has banned vaping. New Zealand has said, nah, we're good. We think this is pretty cool. If we can sensibly give sensible regulation, just to make sure that everything's safe and that nobody's dying from this, then we think it's a great modality. So that's the difference between like the UK and like places like Mexico and Thailand and Australia, which have completely banned vaping. You can't buy hardware, you can't buy e-liquid. And man, that makes me sad because like they do it in fear. They don't maybe see the big enough picture so that they can see all the benefits of vaping. They can see now we've got a 10-year history. We have long-term studies now that prove that vaping is 95 to 98% safer than smoking. You can't argue with science, but yet politically speaking, you live in fear. And when you live in fear, you strike out against it. When people embrace it for what it is, a great smoking cessation technology, and also the ability, like you were saying, for a guy to become a hobbyist, to get a hobby. Maybe he's like medically unable to leave his house, either through, he might have COPD, he might have some physical issues, but yet he can sit at his table. I have a little table over here that I'm not going to show you because it's a mess. That I tinker around with flavors and I rewick my RDAs. He can do that. He can have something to do that gives him some cool stuff to do during the day. And then he's got this community that if he has got a question, he logs in somewhere and says, "Hey guys, what about this?" and 17 answers suddenly appear. You know, I mean, where else have you seen that level of help with an issue? You know, it just doesn't exist. Um, I hope you can answer my question just so I can continue to tell people about it. Is it true that in the UK that there's actually vape shops in hospitals?
Yes, that's absolutely true.
Wow, that is so awesome.
Not in every hospital,
Right, but in some.
yeah, but there are vape shops in hospitals, because we have come to the conclusion that smoking is so bad for you. A lot of people are in hospital because they are smokers.
Yeah.
And a lot of patients, they will continue to smoke while they're in hospital being treated for smoking related diseases because they're addicted to smoking. So if you won't listen to your doctor who says you're going to have a lung removed or something, or whatever it may be, because you're still smoking, we think, okay, is there anything else we can encourage people to do? And yes, it's encouraged people for vaping instead. So yes, you can have vape stores in hospitals.
So they pop you in a wheelchair, wheel you down to the vape shop, which is right next to the gift shop, and say, buy whatever the guy points to. That is so cool. I mean, so cool.
And not only that, and if you haven't heard this news, you will be delighted as well. The NHS, our National Health Service, has just announced that it is now trialing giving patients e-cigarettes when they go into the accident and emergency, into the emergency room, into hospital.
Wow! So they don't have to like go through nicotine withdrawal. Oh, yes, that is sweet.
Yeah.
So here's an e-cigarette. Here, go ahead and puff on this.
Yeah.
And notice that it tastes like strawberry or cream or mango raspberry or like some cool flavor that's not tobacco.
Yes. Now, and the good thing about things like that is that obviously it's a trial. These are trials that are going on at the moment. These will be trials that are reported by academics. We'll then have reliable data on that. Did this work? To what extent did it work? What would it be like if this was rolled out nationally? And then there will be data that other countries can look at and go, maybe they
make a better decision.
Make a better decision. Potentially, even organizations like the World Health Organization might go, there's something in this, but they won't.
Oh boy, if the WHO could ever get behind it, man. But it's too political. It's too much of a hot potato politically, I think, for organizations like the WHO to really get involved in a positive way with it. And it's a sad commentary. I mean, you go back to, like people with medical issues. I tell this story at shows a lot to customers. I lost both my parents to smoker-related lung cancer. My dad a very long time ago, 33 years ago. My mother much more recently, in 2014. My mother smoked unfiltered cigarettes until 3 days before she passed of stage 4 lung cancer. I think that if we would have had some of the choices, had I known about vaping back then, and could have introduced her to vaping maybe in 2010 or 2011 before the cancer took hold, I think that instead of passing away months before my 6-year-old, about to be 7-year-old, was born, she would be here today to be with him, to have him, to hold him, her youngest grandson. It's a sad commentary that, I wish we could have had this technology, this life-saving technology back then, that my own mom might still be around. We were more like best friends than we were mother and son, So for me, it's kind of a personal thing. I see there's a question here. Don's passion in his e-liquid is and getting people off cigarettes is apparent for all to see. How does he maintain his passion when the government makes his job a lot harder? That's why. It's a personal thing. It's what wakes me up in the morning. It's what makes 15-hour days like this week. It's been long days every day because we're up at 4 a.m. to be at Voxpo by 5, and then we have a full work day after that. It's what makes those days okay. It really does. Because if I can help one person to get their mom to quit smoking and get on vaping and avoid that serious of a health issue, that's a cool thing for me. And if I can do it again and again and again, and now maybe in the future in various countries, the UK and Europe and Middle East and Southeast Asia, places like New Zealand, you know, that's what wakes me up in the morning. I mean, yeah, is it a business? Yes. Am I making profits from it? Yes. Am I paying my bills for it? Yes. Am I putting away my retirement plan for it? Yes. But that's not the reason why I'm doing it. That's not my why. Why is because it helps people. And since I've been a little tot, I've always been about helping people, whether it's, you know, helping the lady across the street or go running to the store for her because she walks too slow, you know, from that kind of stuff to now, like helping people to quit smoking, walking in the park and just sharing like pull my mask down, share a smile with someone and put my mask back up. You know, it's all about sharing a little positivity in a space where it's become so easy to be negative.
Absolutely. I think if I jump in real quickly, I think if anything of the last 12 months have shown us, it's that we need to have not just a community strong in sort of the vaping realm, but also just, you know, internationally between people. I think we've gotten so complacent with sort of living our own lives at this point. And I think COVID has proved to us all that we really are sort of like all on that one experience, and that we need to connect over the things and just feeding back into the sort of the smoking related deaths. I think the most poignant thing for me is that they're unnecessary deaths. They don't need to happen. People can quit smoking with the help of vaping.
Yep.
Another unnecessary death potentially as a result of the PACT Act is that, you know, you have these small retailers, these local retailers, brick and mortar stores, these small places who've started up sharing a similar passion to you, Don, in that they want to help people quit and they want to help people live healthier and more fulfilling lives. With the PACT Act coming in, there's a potential that those retailers could fall apart and it could absolutely destroy and decimate that. And that's the concern is all policies like the PACT Act is going to do. Is it just going to not allow us to reduce those unnecessary deaths? I think obviously politicians especially need to take a good long look at the evidence, at the real evidence, not just the face value media misinformation. Understand vaping, speak to people, get an understanding of what goes on behind the scenes, and then make a decision off of that basis. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure that you interact with local policymakers and local politicians as well, and try to inform them and keep them on board with what's going on. And I think that's such a crucial role to play, not just in your role as the CEO of a vape company.
And I think I've just lost audio from you guys. All right, I'm gonna answer the question here. The question was about, you know, getting with our lawmakers, and we haven't done it as much since we've had the pandemic going on, because what we used to pretty much on the regular, get suited up, comb my hair, you know, like trim my beard up, and we would go down and we would just get 15-minute meetings with various legislators on the state level in our state. And all we're trying to do is educate them. We're not trying to, you know, like a lobbyist that's really, you know, trying to do a thing. We do have a lobbyist and we pay her very well to do what she does. A lot of that behind the scenes stuff is when they're actually like, there's a bill, some kind of anti-vaping bill, and then she goes to work and she tries to do some behind the scenes work to be able to let people see the other side of the coin. But what we're trying to do is, I'm a constituent. I am a small business owner within someone's district, within some senator's district, within some congressman's district. And I can knock on that door and say, hey, listen, I'm a Delawarean. I've been a Delawarean for 8 years. I have a small business that I started in Delaware and remains in Delaware. Can I have a conversation with you about my business and what some of these regulatory things that you're considering, what they might potentially do to both my business and my livelihood? And by and large, people have been willing to listen. Some of them not so much, but you know, hey, you live and you learn. You just go to the people who you think you can make a difference with. But yeah, it's tough because the pandemic has now everybody's remote and nobody's in the Capitol building anymore. So we can't do that as effectively as we once used to be able to do.
Absolutely. I think that's why, you know, sort of letter writing campaigns and surveys and getting in touch with obviously the local politicians in any capacity that you can is important for members of the community to again get in touch and share their experience. Obviously, I think we've sort of discussed it before, but we had Julie Casimiro on. Was it Wednesday? She was on, and she was a state representative in Rhode Island, and she originally stood against.
And now she's against it. Yeah.
Now she's again, exactly, and that was all because she interacted with vapers and she interacted with the community. If she hadn't done that, she wouldn't have known what she was standing against originally when she approved that ban, and when she approved putting that through. It was going down to the vape shops and seeing the people in there and seeing what they do and how it changes their lives that allowed her to make a more educated decision.
We took a state senator, I'm not going to say his name. We invited him out to coffee. He agreed to come to coffee with us, and I wasn't at that meeting. But then the invite from that coffee meeting, he was so intrigued by what one of our fellow advocates said, that he then came to that shop. It's the shop with all the cigarettes at the top of the wall.
Yeah.
And he toured around and he saw how nice and neatly the shop was, how there was an age checking machine literally 3 feet inside the door, watched that age check happen. He went into the back. Now they have a small clean room in the back that I often use for very low volume orders. And there's like the certification right on the inside the door. And he's like, oh, wow, this is where the e-liquid is made. He was assuming that it was made in someone's kitchen under unclean circumstances. Like he just had this like mental picture that once we corrected that mental picture, this man, he's not an advocate, but he's super open-minded. I think that if there was some legislation that came through that might threaten to put like businesses like my friends out, I think he'd vote against it. Just on the fact that he was able to come in and see kind of what was up and see the other side of the coin and get a little education and be able to pull back and get perspective on the issue. So yeah, I'm all for that. Whether it's in my own state or whether I'm at a show, and maybe I've had people bring people to shows that aren't necessarily into vaping, and I've gotten a chance to talk to them, and I'm like, hey, listen, look at this. Look, there's 10,000 people who are either just quit or are non-smokers. How can you argue with that? How can you say this isn't effective? How can you? And they're like, oh, we don't know if it's medically safe. I'm like, whoa. Here's this company, this organization called the Royal College of Physicians over in the UK. They're the ones that called cigarettes giving people cancer 13 years before our own FDA figured out that was the case. They said, and I'll give you the link on your phone if you want, that vaping is, well, at that point, 95% safer than smoking. You can't argue with that.
Yes.
And so a lot of times it's helping people to twist the diamond and have a better perspective on things. Once they see that perspective, once they can go from the problem being here to here, then it's better. They can see that there's both, there might be positive and negative. Who knows? We might get some long-term studies that maybe there might be some negative effects of vaping. They have to do with like, the metal that coils are made of and whatnot. And that will make an industry be a better industry. But the idea is so far, nobody's getting sick. Nobody's dying, but yet a lot of people are getting off cigarettes and they're remaining non-smokers. You can't, that's tough to argue with.
That is the thing, and I think just to close it up now, I want to again come back to the human side of things. And you made the point, you said it a few times, the word perspective, and it's getting the perspective right. And it's for people who have power over us, the politicians and the regulators, who if they can only be open-minded, like you're suggesting, come and look at the local businesses, look at the vape stores.
Yeah.
And then you can say, this is what we do. What's the big harm here that you are so adamant to try and put me out of business? What is the evil that I'm doing? And it's like, the answer is, there is no evil here. There is no sort of big, sort of horrible sort of conspiracy. We're just trying to help people make a living, and we're trying to help people live better, healthier lives. That's it.
Here's the situation.
That's the deal.
In the United States, there is this very well-funded, Michael Bloomberg has contributed over $100 million to anti-vaping campaigns. There's all of these, and one of these organizations actually sued the FDA a year ago and won, and they got our PMTA date moved up, 2 years. So what's happening is the politicians are hearing this propaganda and this misinformation campaign and they're drinking the Kool-Aid without seeing, without getting the other side of the coin. You as a journalist, you get an opinion on something, you always seek out, you know, another opinion on it before you publish it. You know, that's just basic journalism 101. If politicians could only be like that, you would have a lot more politicians that see a bigger, better picture of what vaping does, that it is beneficial. It is a healthier alternative to smoking. It does save lives. So anyway, I know we have questions here. I could go on and on and on, but I want to see some of these questions and see if we can answer them. These folks are still
We're
around.
almost out of time, and I think we've done most of the questions. Just a very quick one. Biden in the White House, good or bad?
Too early to call.
Okay,
Too
yeah.
early to call. You know, he could go either way. We'll see.
Yeah,
you know.
okay. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Does Don agree vaping is demonized in the US because policymakers and politicians have personal financial interests in big tobacco? I think we've done that one kind of.
Yeah, we've done that one.
I think we've done that one.
We beat up on that horse.
See if you can do this in one sentence. How would you describe the PACT Act to someone who doesn't know about it? Awful.
A politician put wording in a bill that was going to give us a stimulus check. He hid it. And signing that into law, President Trump didn't realize what he did, where he actually, because he signed that into law, that verbiage prevented the United States Post Office from shipping any vapor products internationally or within the continental United States. Yeah. And that has had serious implications that we've talked about for the last hour.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what that is. Question for Don.
2 sentences.
Yes, that's fine. We'll lay an extra sentence. Very, very quick now. Do you see more restrictions coming in the future for the US vaping industry? You guys have had a rough time of late. Great to see you fighting the good fight. Probably. Well, what do you think? Yeah, what's the answer?
The next step for us is going to be to lab test our products to ensure scientifically that they're safe for people to ingest into their lungs. That's going to cost us tens of thousands of dollars. I anticipate, even as part of a group that's going to get a volume discount at one particular lab, that check is going to be like somewhere between 75 and 80 grand for me. I'm a little company, and today I can't write that check. I'm going to have to get a fund so that by September of 2022, I will have had that testing and will still be able to remain on the U.S. market. So yeah, okay. the next blow, that lab testing is going to absolutely nearly extinctify vaping, because there's only about 20 or 30 companies that can write that big check. So yeah, we'll see.
That's a terrible threat on the horizon, basically. But to end it, we don't have a question. We have a comment from an anonymous attendee. Thank you, Don, for the advocacy you are doing. We appreciate it all over here in Europe. And we do. We absolutely appreciate
thank you for the kind words.
Thank you for coming here. Thank you for giving up your time. And we look forward to welcoming you back to Vape Live again. Yeah. And maybe we'll see you.
I look forward to the next one. I really do.
Have some tequila or something.
So now you're considering it. Okay. I guess we'll be seeing you in September, my friend.
All right. Listen, I've got to go. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to have you back on again. Take care. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.
Namaste.